My face slammed against the glass door, the impact ringing in my ears as blood trickled warm down my cheek, staining my shirt. I'm Marcus Reed, a 40-year-old black Air Force veteran, and I never expected a routine stop in Memphis, Tennessee, to end with an officer's hand pinning me like I was a criminal. My heart pounded, but I kept my hands visible, my voice steady despite the sting. "I'm not resisting, sir," I said, tasting iron. Officer Greg Harlan, a white man with a sneer that cut deeper than the glass, leaned closer, his breath hot. "You don't talk back to me, boy." The word hit like a slap, and the crowd behind me gasped, their phones flickering to life. This wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was a reckoning, and I was caught in its center. Moments earlier, I'd walked into this corner store, my canvas tote heavy with books from a 2-mile trek to a community library. I'm a retired pararescueman, trained to save lives under fire, but nothing prepared me for the weight of eyes judging me before I spoke. The clerk, Aisha, a 27-year-old with braids and a nervous smile, scanned my water bottle. A couple of folks lingered nearby, Jared, a 32-year-old music teacher strumming an imaginary guitar, and Carla, a 45-year-old accountant clutching her purse. I nodded at Aisha, my usual quiet way, but then the door swung open, and Harlan stormed in, his 6'2" frame filling the space. His eyes locked on me instantly, like he'd been hunting. I felt it, the way my skin, my stride, my very existence seemed to offend him. He didn't see a veteran, he saw a threat. "That bag," he barked from 8 feet away, pointing at my tote. "What's in it? Something you shouldn't have." His voice was loud, performative, meant to shame. Aisha's hands froze on the register, Jared's fingers stilled. I turned, meeting Harlan's glare. "Just books, sir. I'm happy to show you." My tone was calm, my Air Force training kicking in, de-escalate, stay focused. But Harlan wasn't here to listen. His smirk twisted, and he stepped closer, his badge glinting like a weapon. "Open it, or we got a problem." I set the tote down slowly, unzipping it to reveal 3 library books, history, poetry, a novel. "See? Just books." Harlan's eyes narrowed, not satisfied but provoked, like my compliance was an insult. "Don't get cute," he snapped, and that's when it happened, his hand shot out, shoving me toward the door. My cheek hit the glass, a 2-inch cut opening instantly, blood dripping onto my collar. The crowd gasped, but Harlan didn't stop. "You think you're smart, huh?" he hissed, pinning me harder. My mind raced, flashing to missions in deserts, pulling wounded soldiers to safety. I'd faced death, but this was different, this was hatred, raw and unearned. Inside, I screamed to fight back, but I knew that'd only prove his point. So I stood still, blood stinging my face, and said, "I'm a veteran, sir. I've done nothing wrong." Harlan laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "Veteran? Sure you are. Keep talking, and you'll regret it." His grip tightened, but I felt something shift, the crowd wasn't silent anymore. Jared, the teacher, pulled out his phone, his hands shaking but steady enough to record from 10 feet away. "This ain't right," he muttered, loud enough for others to hear. Carla, her purse forgotten, fumbled for her phone, whispering, "I'm calling someone." Aisha, behind the counter, spoke up, her voice trembling. "He's a regular, officer. He didn't do anything." Harlan whipped around, glaring at her. "Stay out of this, or you're next." But Aisha didn't back down, her eyes fierce despite her fear. I caught her gaze, nodding slightly, "Thank you." My cheek throbbed, but their courage lit something in me. These strangers, who owed me nothing, were choosing to act. Harlan's confidence wavered, his eyes darting to the phones, now 5 or 6, capturing every second. He leaned in, his voice low, venomous. "You're nobody here. I'm the law." The word "nobody" burned, but I held his stare, my training keeping me grounded. I wasn't nobody, I'd saved lives, earned medals, carried scars. But to him, I was just a black man, a target. I thought of my daughter, Zoe, 12, waiting at home, her smile when I read her poetry. I couldn't let this break me, not for her. I have rights, I said, my voice firm despite the blood. Harlan's face twisted, and he shoved me again, my shoulder slamming into the doorframe. The crowd surged closer, their murmurs growing bolder. A kid, maybe 10, tugged at Carla's sleeve, asking, why is he hurting him? Carla's eyes welled up, but she kept filming, whispering, because we let this happen too long. Her words hit me harder than Harlan's hands. She was right, this wasn't new. I'd felt it before, the stares at airports, the random checks, the assumption I didn't belong. But tonight, something was different. These people weren't looking away. Jared's voice rose, shaky but clear. He's bleeding, man. Let him go. Harlan spun, pointing at him. Shut it, or you're in cuffs. But Jared didn't stop, his phone steady, his music teacher's calm masking his fear. I saw it in his eyes, the same fear I'd felt, but he pushed through. My chest tightened, not from pain but gratitude. They didn't know me, but they saw me. Harlan's control was slipping, his sneer faltering as more phones joined, their lenses glinting like a jury. He was the villain here, not me, and he knew it. His past complaints. Whispers of a 2018 incident a mile away, a kid bruised for resisting, must have haunted him now. He wasn't just fighting me, he was fighting a truth he'd buried. I took a breath, blood crusting on my cheek, and said, you don't have to do this, sir. We're all watching. The "we" wasn't planned, but it felt true. Harlan's hand twitched, like he wanted to strike again, but he froze as headlights flashed outside. A black SUV screeched up, and Major Tanya Brooks, a liaison from Memphis's Naval Support Activity Mid-South, stepped out. I'd met her at a veterans outreach, 3 miles away. Her voice cut through the chaos. Officer Harlan, release him. That's Marcus Reed, Air Force pararescueman. Harlan's grip slackened, his face paling. The crowd buzzed, phones capturing Tanya's authority, her 5'8" frame commanding respect. He's under my jurisdiction, she said, her eyes locking with mine. You good, Marcus? I nodded, wiping blood with my sleeve. I'm standing, ma'am. Harlan stepped back, muttering, just a check, but his voice cracked. Tanya's glare silenced him. I straightened, my toad at my feet, blood staining my shirt, but my heart steady. The crowd, Jared, Carla, Aisha, the kid, stood with me, their phones a shield. Harlan's power was fading, exposed by their courage. I thought of Zoe again, her trust in me to come home whole. This wasn't over, but it had begun. A fight not just for me, but for everyone who'd been made nobody. As Tanya guided me toward the SUV, I looked back at the crowd, their eyes fierce with purpose. They'd seen the truth, and I knew they wouldn't let it die. This was bigger than one shove, one cut, one man. It was a spark, and Memphis would feel its heat. The blood on my cheek had started to crust, a sharp sting pulsing with every heartbeat, but I stood firm against the glass door, Officer Greg Harlan's hand still heavy on my shoulder. My name's Marcus Reed, and in that Memphis convenience store, I was no longer just a man buying water, I was a symbol of everything Harlan despised. His eyes, cold and narrow, bore into me, daring me to flinch, but I wouldn't give him that. My Air Force training, forged in chaos, kept me steady. Assess the threat, hold your ground, protect what matters. What mattered now wasn't just my dignity, it was the truth, and the crowd behind me, their phones glowing like beacons, was starting to see it. Harlan's voice dropped, low and venomous, as he leaned closer, his 200-pound frame blocking the light. You're pushing your luck, thinking you can talk back. I felt the crowd's tension, their breaths held, but I also felt their eyes, Jared, the music teacher, still filming from 10 feet away. Carla, the accountant, her phone trembling but steady, Aisha, the clerk, her fists clenched behind the counter. They were waiting, not just for what Harlan would do, but for what I'd do next. My tote bag, stuffed with library books, lay at my feet, unzipped and exposed, proof of my innocence, but Harlan didn't care about proof. He cared about control, and I was unraveling it by standing tall. My mind flickered to my daughter, Zoe, her face lighting up when I taught her to read Maya Angelou. I'd promised her I'd always come home, and I wasn't breaking that now. Slowly, I reached into my pocket, ignoring Harlan's sharp, "What's that?" My fingers closed around a small, silver Air Force ID, 3 by 2 inches, its edges worn from years of carrying it close. I held it up, not thrusting it in his face, but letting it catch the store's harsh light. "I'm a pararescueman, retired," I said, my voice calm but unyielding. "Served 15 years. Saved lives. You're stopping the wrong man." The crowd gasped, a ripple of shock spreading. Jared's phone zoomed in, his whisper carrying, "He's a veteran." Carla's eyes widened, her filming hand steadier now, as if my truth gave her courage. Harlan's smirk faltered, but he doubled down, his voice a forced scoff. "That's fake. You think I'm stupid?" But his eyes betrayed him, darting to the ID, then to the crowd, now 12 strong, their phones a wall of evidence. I saw doubt creep into him, the kind that festers when a man's power is built on lies. Harlan wasn't just a bully, he was a man haunted by his own record, whispers of past complaints, like a 2018 incident a mile away, swept under the rug by a system that protected him. Now, that system was cracking, and I was the wedge. I held the ID higher, letting the crowd see the engraved eagle, my name etched in faded letters. Aisha's voice broke the silence, soft but fierce. "He's telling the truth. I know him. He's here every week." Her words, from a woman who'd served me with a smile for months, hit me harder than Harlan's shove. She didn't have to speak, she risked her job, her safety, but she did, and it lit a fire in me. I nodded at her, my chest tight with gratitude. "Thank you, Aisha," I said, loud enough for the crowd to hear. Harlan spun toward her, his glare venomous, but she didn't shrink. Her defiance, born of countless unseen battles, mirrored mine, and I knew we were fighting the same war. The crowd grew bolder, their murmurs rising. A young boy, maybe 8, clinging to Carla's hand, tugged at her sleeve, his voice piercing the tension. "Mama, why's he mad at a soldier?" The question hung in the air, innocent but devastating, like a truth no adult could dodge. Carla's eyes welled up, but she kept filming, whispering, "Because some people see wrong before they see right." Her words weren't just for her son, they were for me, for everyone watching. I felt a pang, not of pain, but of purpose. This wasn't just about me anymore, it was about that boy, about Zoe, about every kid who'd grow up under eyes like Harlan's. My mind flashed to a mission in Afghanistan, pulling a wounded pilot from a burning chopper, his hand gripping mine, trusting me to save him. I'd carried that trust home, but Harlan saw only my skin, not my scars. I took a breath, the cut on my cheek throbbing, and said, "I'm not your enemy, sir. I'm just a man." Harlan's face twisted, his control slipping as the crowd's phones multiplied, their lenses catching his every flinch. He wasn't just fighting me, he was fighting a truth he'd never faced, his power wasn't absolute. Jared stepped closer, now 8 feet away, his voice firm. "Let him go, man. You're on camera." His courage, born of a teacher who'd seen kids profiled at school, was a lifeline. I saw it in his eyes, fear, but also resolve, like he'd decided this was his line in the sand. Harlan's hand twitched, his insecurity boiling over, but before he could act, headlights flashed outside. A jeep screeched to a stop, and Major Tanya Brooks, a 5'8" powerhouse from Naval Support Activity Mid-South, 3 miles away, strode in. I'd met her at a Memphis youth program, where she mentored kids like Zoe, teaching them to stand tall. Her presence was electric, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Officer Harlan, release him. Marcus Reed is under military jurisdiction." The crowd buzzed, phones capturing her authority. Harlan's grip loosened, his face paling, but he muttered, "This is my call." Tanya's glare silenced him, her eyes locking with mine. "You holding up, Marcus?" she asked, her tone both command and care. I wiped blood from my cheek, standing taller. "I'm here, ma'am." The crowd's energy shifted. Fear giving way to awe. Aisha whispered, "That's real power," her words a quiet anthem. Harlan stepped back, his flashlight lowered, its 8-inch beam dimming in Tanya's presence. But his eyes burned, not with remorse, but with a desperate need to save face. I saw it then, Harlan wasn't just a man, he was a system, built on unchecked power, now crumbling under scrutiny. My ID, still in my hand, felt heavier, not a shield but a challenge to everyone watching, "See me, not what you assume." The boy's question echoed in my mind, and I thought of Zoe, how I'd tell her about this, not to scare her, but to show her what standing means. Tanya's hand rested on my shoulder, guiding me toward the door, but I paused, looking at the crowd. Jared, Carla, Aisha, the boy, their faces weren't just witnesses, they were warriors, choosing truth over silence. Harlan's sneer lingered, but it was hollow, his authority exposed as fragile. As I stepped outside, the humid Memphis air hit my bloodied cheek, but I felt lighter. This wasn't the end, it was a beginning, a spark that would burn brighter than Harlan's hate. The crowd's phones followed me, their light a promise, "We see you, Marcus, and we won't look away." The cut on my cheek had scabbed over, but the weight of that night in the Memphis convenience store clung to me like humidity after a storm. I'm Marcus Reed, a 40-year-old Air Force veteran, and though I'd faced Officer Greg Harlan's hatred, it was the crowd's courage, Jared's trembling phone, Carla's tearful resolve, Aisha's defiant stand, that stayed with me. I thought it might end there, a fleeting moment of injustice caught on camera, but I was wrong. By morning, the video of Harlan shoving me, my blood smearing the glass, had exploded across the internet, racking up 15 million views in 48 hours. I sat in my 1,200 square foot apartment, my daughter Zoe asleep in her room, and scrolled through my phone, stunned. Comments flooded platforms like X and Instagram. "This is America's shame," one read. Another, "Marcus is a hero for staying calm." I wasn't a hero, I was just a man who refused to break. But their words stirred something deep, a mix of pride and unease. I'd wanted to protect Zoe from this, to keep her world safe, but now my face was everywhere, a symbol I hadn't chosen. My phone buzzed with calls from news outlets, but I let them go to voicemail. I wasn't here for fame, I wanted dignity, not headlines. Outside, Memphis was waking up, and the city felt different, like it was holding its breath. I walked 2 miles to Overton Park, needing air, and saw a crowd gathered near the art museum, 300 strong, their voices rising in a town hall called by the mayor. Aisha was there, her braids catching the sunlight, speaking to a reporter. "Marcus is one of us," she said, her voice steady now. "He didn't deserve that." I stayed back, my cap pulled low, but her words hit me hard. She'd risked everything that night, and now she was carrying the fight forward. I thought of her quiet strength behind the counter, how she'd faced Harlan's glare for me, a regular she barely knew. My chest tightened, not with anger, but gratitude. I wanted to thank her, but words felt small against her courage. Nearby, Jared stood with a group of teachers, his phone still in hand, like he was ready to record again. "We can't let this fade," he told them, his music teacher's calm masking a fire I hadn't seen before. He'd been scared that night, I knew it, but he'd filmed anyway, and now he was organizing a "Record the Truth" workshop at Rhodes College, a mile away, teaching 200 students to document injustice safely. I overheard him say, "Marcus didn't need to shout, his silence made us listen. His words stung, not because they were wrong, but because they reminded me how close I'd come to being silenced forever. I thought of my Air Force days, saving lives under fire, never expecting to need saving at home. The crowd chanted, "Justice for Marcus," but I slipped away, my tote bag heavy with the same books from that night. I wasn't ready to be their symbol, not when I was still processing the blood on my cheek, Harlan's sneer, the boy's question, why is he mad at a soldier? That question haunted me, echoing Zoe's innocence. I wanted to shield her from this, but I knew she'd see the video eventually. How would I explain it? I reached my apartment, the TV blaring news about the video. CNN called it, "Memphis's Reckoning," NBC ran a headline, "Veteran Shoved, America Watches." I muted it, my mind on Zoe. She deserved a world where her father wasn't a target, but this video was changing that world, one view at a time. My phone pinged, a message from Carla, the accountant from the store. "I'm sorry I didn't do more," she wrote. "But I'm speaking now." She'd started a petition, 100,000 signatures strong, demanding Harlan's suspension. I typed back, "You did enough," my fingers shaking. Carla's guilt mirrored my own. How many times had I stayed silent, thinking it wasn't my fight? Her courage, born of a mother protecting her son, reminded me why this mattered. I thought of her boy, his small voice cutting through the chaos, and felt a resolve harden in me. This was for him, for Zoe, for every kid who'd ask why. By evening, I walked past Beale Street, where a local artist, Tasha, was painting a mural, 25 feet wide, of my silhouette, tote bag, bloodied cheek, eyes unyielding. The caption read, "Strength in Silence." I stopped, my breath catching. Tasha, a 30-year-old with paint-splattered overalls, saw me and nodded. "This ain't just you, Marcus," she said. "It's all of us." Her words broke something open in me, not pain, but purpose. I wasn't alone, Memphis was claiming this fight. I thought of my pararescue missions, how saving one life rippled to others. This was bigger, a city, a nation, waking up. I wanted to stay invisible, but Tasha's mural made that impossible. "I didn't ask for this," I told her, my voice low. She smiled, gentle but firm. "None of us did. But we're here." I nodded, my eyes on the mural, its colors bold against the dusk. Back home, Zoe woke, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, why's your face on TV?" she asked, her 12-year-old curiosity piercing me. I sat beside her, my hand on hers, and said, "Because some people think I don't belong. But others think I do." She frowned, processing, then hugged me tight. Her trust fueled me, but also scared me. What if this fight cost her safety? I pushed the thought away, focusing on the now. My phone buzzed again. A veterans group had launched a hotline for mistreated service members, inspired by me. I hadn't spoken publicly, but my silence was speaking, louder than I'd imagined. The next day, I heard Malik, the graphic designer from the store, had started a podcast, Eyes Open, sharing profiling stories, already at 10,000 listeners. His voice, once trembling, now carried weight, like he'd found his purpose that night. I listened to his first episode, his words raw, Marcus stood still, and it made me move. I shut it off, overwhelmed, my mind on Harlan. He wasn't just one man, he was a system, his sneers backed by years of unchecked power. But now, that system was faltering, exposed by a video I hadn't meant to star in. I walked to the Mississippi River, a mile away, the water reflecting the city's lights. A group of college students passed, one saying, "That's him." I kept walking, my cap low, but their whispers followed, "He's why we're marching." I didn't want their praise, but I needed their fight. Memphis was changing, not just for me, but for Aisha, Jared, Carla, Tasha, Malik. Their voices, their actions, were the real ripple, spreading beyond one store, one shove, one cut. I thought of my Air Force oath, to protect and serve, and realized this was my new mission, not with rescues, but with truth. I declined an interview with a local station, sending a note, I stood for dignity, not fame. But as I looked at Tasha's mural, Zoe's hand in mine, I knew my silence wasn't retreat, it was a challenge, daring others to stand too. The video played on, its views climbing, but it wasn't the numbers that mattered. It was the eyes watching, the heart stirred, the city rising. Memphis was my home, and now, it was my battlefield, not against Harlan, but for a truth we'd all carry forward, together. The scar on my cheek had faded to a thin line, but the memory of Officer Greg Harlan's shove burned fresh, a reminder of the night Memphis saw me not as Marcus Reed, a 40-year-old Air Force veteran, but as a target. Weeks after the video of my bloodied face went viral, I stood in a community center 2 miles from that convenience store, surrounded by kids who looked at me with wide eyes, not for my pararescue missions but for surviving a system that didn't want me to. I wasn't here to speak about that night, I was here to teach resilience, to show them they could stand tall like I had. But the city was changing, and I felt it, like a current pulling us all forward. The Memphis Police Department had suspended Harlan, a decision that hit the news like a thunderclap. I learned from a local report that 7 complaints against him, including a 2019 incident 3 miles away where a teen was roughed up for loitering, had been buried until now. I sat in my 1,200 square foot apartment, Zoe coloring at the table, and read the article, my chest tight. Harlan wasn't just one man, he was a symptom, his sneers backed by a system that let him thrive. But that system was cracking, and I wasn't alone in pushing it. Officer Ryan Tate, Harlan's partner that night, a 33-year-old with a quiet demeanor I'd barely noticed, stepped forward. I saw him on TV, standing before a panel, his voice steady but heavy. I saw Marcus bleed, he said, and I did nothing. I'd seen Harlan cross lines before, but I stayed silent, thinking it kept me safe. His words hit me harder than Harlan's hands. Tate wasn't apologizing, he was confessing, and I felt a strange respect for him. I remembered his eyes that night, averted, conflicted, like he was trapped in a role he didn't choose. Now, he was choosing, risking his badge to speak truth. I thought of my Air Force days, how saving a life meant facing fire, and realized Tate was facing his own fire now. His testimony, I learned, tipped the scales. Harlan was terminated, banned from law enforcement nationwide. I exhaled, not in triumph, but relief, for Zoe, for the kids at the center, for every face Harlan would never target again. But it wasn't enough, not yet. I walked to the center, my tote bag light without books, and saw Aisha volunteering, teaching kids to write poetry. She smiled, her braids swinging, and said, "You started this, Marcus." I shook my head, but her words lingered. She'd spoken up that night, risking her job, and now she was shaping futures. I joined her, helping a 10-year-old boy named Kai write about courage, his words raw, standing up is scary, but hiding is worse. His poem mirrored my own thoughts, fear had gripped me that night, but standing still had been my defiance. I thought of Carla's son, his question echoing. Why is he mad at a soldier? Kai's words were an answer, a promise to never hide. The city moved forward, too. Tennessee passed Marcus's law, requiring police stops to be justified in writing, reviewed every 60 days, with 70% public approval. I read about it at the center, kids cheering around me, and felt a weight lift. This wasn't my law, it was theirs, Aisha's, Jared's, Carla's. Jared, I learned, had expanded his Record the Truth workshop, training 500 students across Memphis. I listened to his podcast, Eyes Open, where he shared my story, not as a victim but as a spark. Marcus didn't need to fight, he said. He just needed to be seen. His voice, once shaky, now carried a teacher's conviction, and I saw him in my mind, phone raised, choosing courage over fear. I wanted to thank him, but I stayed quiet, letting his work speak. Carla's petition had grown, sparking a national campaign, see and speak, with 50,000 pledges to act as bystanders. I saw her at a rally, her son by her side, holding a sign, "We see you." Her eyes met mine, and I nodded, my throat tight. She'd filmed through tears that night, and now she was a voice for thousands. I thought of my own silence, times I'd looked away, and felt a resolve harden, to never let fear win again. At the center, I mentored kids, sharing stories of my missions, not to boast but to show them strength wasn't loud. One girl, 14, asked, "How'd you stay calm when he hurt you?" I paused, my scar itching, and said, "I thought of my daughter, and everyone who'd stand after me." Her nod, fierce and quiet, reminded me of Zoe, who'd started asking about justice. I wanted her to see this, not my pain, but our power. A new app, a virtual reality tool simulating bystander scenarios, caught my eye. Downloaded by 20,000 users, it let people practice intervening, inspired by that night. I tried it, standing in a digital store, Harlan's sneer replaced by an avatar's glare. My heart raced, but I chose to speak, and the app's feedback, "You shifted the outcome," felt real. It wasn't just a game, it was a mirror, showing how one voice could change everything. Tate, I learned, had joined a bias training program, speaking to 500 officers across Tennessee. I saw a clip of him, his eyes haunted but clear. "I was trained to control, not to see," he said. Marcus made me see. His redemption wasn't for me, it was for the badge he still wore, now heavier with truth. I respected him, not for his past silence, but for his present fight. Memphis schools added my story to their ethics curriculum, reaching 1,500 students. I visited one, a mile from the center, and saw kids debate, "What would you do if you were Marcus?" Their answers, stand, speak, record, lit a fire in me. They weren't just learning, they were promising. I thought of Harlan, his termination a headline, but his sneers still echoed. He'd been a man desperate for control, his power built on fear, not respect. Now, that fear was turning on him, his past complaints a noose he couldn't escape. I didn't hate him, I pitied him, a man undone by his own hate. At the center, Kai showed me his finished poem, ending, "I'll stand, because someone stood for me." I hugged him, my eyes burning. This was why I stayed, not for murals or laws, but for kids like Kai, Zoe, who'd inherit this fight. As I walked home, the Mississippi River glinting a mile away, I saw Tasha's mural, my silhouette bold against Beale Street. A note taped to it read, "You gave us eyes." I didn't write back, but I carried it home, my tote heavier with purpose. Memphis wasn't healed, but it was awake, and I'd helped light the spark, not with anger, but with a stand that said we all deserve to be seen. The scar on my cheek had faded to a whisper, a thin line I traced only in quiet moments, but the night officer Greg Harlan shoved me against that Memphis convenience store door stayed vivid, a beacon of what I'd survived and what I'd sparked. I'm Marcus Reed, a 40-year-old Air Force veteran, and now, in a 1,500-square-foot home 10 miles from downtown, I sought peace with my daughter Zoe, her sketches of hope filling our walls. Yet Memphis held me close, its pulse changed by a video that showed my blood, my stand, and a crowd's awakening. Tasha's mural on Beale Street, my silhouette bold with "Strength in Silence," drew 1,000 visitors monthly, their notes a tapestry. "You showed me how to stand," one said, inked in blue. I visited once, my cap low, and felt their words, not as praise, but as a shared vow. I hadn't wanted this spotlight, but I understood its power, like a pararescue mission where one life saved rippled to others. I mentored kids at a community center 2 miles away, teaching them not my story, but their own strength. Aisha, now a poet, read there, her voice fierce, "Marcus stood, so we rise." I clapped from the back, her smile finding me, her courage from that night, defying Harlan's glare, now shaping futures. I thought of Zoe, 12, her mural sketches vibrant, one showing a crowd with raised hands, eyes fierce. "This is us," she'd said, and I held her close, my heart full. I declined every interview, every medal, sending a note to a news station, dignity isn't loud, it's steady. My silence let others speak. Jared, whose Record the Truth workshop trained 1,000 students, his podcast, Eyes Open, reaching 50,000 ears. I met him at a cafe, a mile from the center, his guitar case a reminder of his teacher's heart. You made me brave, Marcus, he said. I shook my head, admitting, I was scared, Jared. I just stood. His nod, warm and true, bound us, men who'd found courage together. Carla's See and Speak campaign, born of her petition, had 100,000 pledges nationwide. At a rally, her son, taller now, held a sign, We see you. She hugged me, whispering, You gave us voice. I thought of her son's question that night, why is he mad at a soldier? And felt pride for her, a mother turning fear into fire. Officer Ryan Tate, Harlan's partner, spoke at 10 police academies, reaching 2,000 cadets. I saw his clip, his voice raw, Marcus's blood broke my silence. His eyes, heavy with past guilt, showed a man remaking his badge's meaning. I respected him, not for what he hadn't done, but for what he did now, facing a system that had shielded Harlan's sneers. Harlan, terminated, was a ghost, his power built on fear, undone by truth. I grieved not for him, but for a world that had let him thrive. A proposed Witness Day holiday, honoring bystanders who record injustice, gained 200,000 signatures. I signed it, my cap hiding my face, not for me, but for Jared's phone, Carla's tears, Aisha's stand. Memphis's Stand Tall festival, 5 miles from Beale Street, drew 5,000, celebrating resilience. Zoe went with Aisha, returning with a bracelet. See truth. I'm proud, Daddy, she said, and I broke, not in pain, but purpose. A scholarship fund in my name at Rhodes College supported 50 black veterans yearly. I skipped its launch, writing, Let Them Soar. A mobile exhibit, touring 20 U.S. cities, showed bystander videos, mine among them, seen by 100,000. I visited it, a mile from the center, its caption, One stand, many eyes, stirring me. At the center, Kai, 11, showed me his new poem, Eyes Open, Hearts Loud. I hugged him, thinking of Zoe, their voice is my legacy. Walking past Tasha's mural, a note read, You taught us sight. I carried it home, my tote heavy with meaning. Memphis was my battlefield, not for war, but truth, alive in Aisha's words, Jared's work, Carla's fight, Tate's talks, Kai's hope. As I tucked Zoe in, her bracelet glinting, I reflected on my journey. That night, bloodied but unbroken, I'd learned silence could be strength, not surrender. That standing, not shouting, could shake a system, that courage wasn't mine alone, but shared with strangers who chose to see. I'd faced Harlan's hate, a man desperate to control, but found power in a crowd's eyes, in Zoe's trust, in a city's awakening. My lesson was simple, dignity endures when we refuse to be erased, when we stand for each other, not just ourselves. I thought of the Mississippi River, a mile away, its flow like this fight, steady, unstoppable. Looking at Zoe, I whispered, We're enough, but my heart asked you, the reader, if you were in a similar situation, with elements like social, racial, psychological, behavioral, how would you approach it to achieve the best possible outcome? The answer isn't in me, it's in you, in every eye that refuses to look away, in every stand that builds a legacy stronger than hate.